When we talk about deep anime, shows that make you think about philosophy, morality, or simply the human condition. We often hear the same names: Neon Genesis, Monster, Attack on Titans, but some series are dismissed almost immediately as dumb fun or for kids, as if spectacle and substance can't coexist, with titles like Naruto, Dragon Ball. For many casual viewers, these are powerful fantasy shows. The assumption is that there is no real complexity behind them, just predictable battles and over-the-top spectacle. But here's the problem with that assumption. It ignores the emotional depth, character arcs, and subtle thematic threads woven into these stories. Naruto isn't just about becoming Hokage. It's a story about generational trauma, loneliness, the burden of legacy, and the cycles of existence. Dragon Ball isn't just screaming and power-ups, but it's about resilience, some self-improvement, and forging your own path. Even Black Clover, often mocked even by me, by being Naruto with magic. But it tells a story still about overcoming prejudice and defying the limitations that you as an individual are born with. These things sure can slow you down, but they will not stop you if you persist and fight for long enough. And yet there's another series that I cover on this channel that perhaps is even more misunderstood in certain aspects. A show dismissed by many as a parody, just a bunch of comedic skits thrown together with overpowered fight scenes. That show is One Punch Man. On the surface, One Punch Man looks like the least serious seinen imaginable. It's a world filled with ridiculous heroes and monsters, a crab man with no pants, a mosquito woman who is just thirsting to suck something, and a main character who defeats every enemy with a single punch. Amount of times I've said that in the past 2 months. The structure alone seems to remove any tension from the narrative. If Saitama can end every fight instantly, how is the show ever going to build stakes? How can we, as an audience, take anything seriously when a supposed epic moment gets punctured by the gag? Every time the story edges towards emotional depth, it feels like it gets swept away by absurdity. Genos is telling us his tragic backstory. Moments later, Saitama interrupts with a deadpan face of boredom and a demand to sum it up. Or, the alien invasion arc, where an apocalyptic threat is ended with an anticlimactic, effortless win. This style of storytelling debatably plays with our expectations, and it can grant a perception that One Punch Man is just a comedy and action hybrid, with no interest in drama or any layered themes. It's satire after all, poking fun at shonen tropes while celebrating them at the same time. But here's where people overlook the nuance. Buried inside all the meta humor is a study of heroism itself, with a character who can't even win a single fight, a character whose value isn't measured in raw strength, but in their resolve. This character stands out above all else. It's not Genos, it's not Bang, it's not Blast, it's not Flashy Flash. I'm talking about Muman Rider, a Class C nobody with no powers, no fame, and no hope of victory. And yet he may be the purest hero in the series. Muman Rider, his real name is Satoru. He is the definition of ordinary. No superpowers or strength, no high-tech weapons, no secret power waiting to be unlocked. He rides a normal bike. He throws normal punches that barely sting most monsters he comes across. And in a world crawling with monsters capable of leveling cities, it would seemingly make him irrelevant. But here's the thing. He shows up every time. No matter the odds, no matter how hopeless the fight is, he's there. He's like a good version of Team Rocket. He knows he's outmatched, but he turns up anyway, ready to do his best again and again and again, even though he gets blasted off again. Whether other heroes might retreat or wait for backup, Muman Rider charges in, not because he believes he can win, but because he believes someone has to try. His courage doesn't come from confidence in his abilities, but from the refusal to let fear dictate his actions. And he's humble. In a profession where heroes jostle for ranks and fame and sponsorships, Muman Rider doesn't care about glory. He helps with evacuations, he guides civilians to safety, he handles small-time crimes no one else bothers with. Even the smallest contribution to him matters, because it matters to the people that he helps. This makes him a rare figure in One Punch Man. Muman Rider, his motivation is simple, and that's to live up to his own moral compass and to do the right thing. Compare him to other characters in anime like Deku from Boku no Hero might be one. Someone who threw himself in danger even before he had powers, but he gets powers and then becomes the strongest hero. In Naruto, Rock Lee is a perfect example of a character who is unimaginably weak, works hard, and gets stronger. But his arc inherently is still self-centered. It centers around him proving that he is worth something, that he can match the greats. But Muman Rider's journey is different. He doesn't dream about becoming number one or unlocking any hidden potential. He accepts that he may never be strong, but he fights anyway. Not for status, not for personal glory or satisfaction. And that's the essence of his character. Unwavering moral resolve in the face of guaranteed defeat. The fact that he shows up over and over again, knowing full well he will lose, transforms the narratives he's involved with from comic relief to one of the most admirable elements of the story. If there's one moment that defines Muman Rider, it's his fight with Deep Sea King. By the time Muman Rider arrives, the situation is already dire. Several A-class heroes have fallen, even an S-class. Contenders like Peri Peri Prisoner have been beaten into the ground, and Speed of Sound Sonic had to retreat. The Sea King is a towering, near invincible monster, and is pouring with rain, making him even stronger. When Muman steps forward, everyone watching knows the truth. He can't win. Regardless, he throws his bike aside and runs straight at the king. He lands a punch and it does nothing. He's knocked down instantly, and yet he gets up, only to be thrown across the street, and yet he gets up over and over again until his body simply is incapable. It's the strength of his will and resolve. He buys precious seconds for the civilians to escape. He inspires those watching to believe that courage isn't about winning, but it's about standing firm when it counts, even if Saitama comes in and defeats him in a single blow. The media gives Muman Rider the credit for his bravery and his actions, and his rank does rise, but he refuses to accept it. He insists that he hasn't earned the praise, that he was simply doing what needed to be done, and there's still a lot he has to do where he is now. That humanity, with the refusal to quit, is what makes the scene so powerful. Thousands of people have made videos on this single scene from a show that aired 10 years ago, but I felt the need to cover it in some capacity here. This is not only one of the best moments in Muman Rider's character, but in the entire series. And Muman Rider isn't alone in this. I did a poll to point out 4 characters that I thought had pretty cool arcs in One Punch Man that I think should be appreciated at a higher capacity. One of which I won't be covering in the video because King, a lot of his character arc comes later, even after the Monster Association, which is what season 3 is going to cover later this year. So I don't want to spoil anyone who is going in now and has only watched the anime. But there's 2 people I would like to talk about. For example, a lone wolf, a man of arrogant self-reliance to a genuine respect for heroism, largely due to his encounter with Saitama, a trend that is prominent in One Punch Man. Initially, he treats martial arts like a game and sees heroes as foolish, believing his own strength is more than enough to handle, any threat he comes across. And people who become heroes simply do so because they aren't cut out to fight him. However, when the Monster Association attacks, he's forced into a fight of survival against enemies far beyond his current level. Watching the very heroes he once mocked risk everything to protect others, him included. He was beaten, terrified, and powerless to save himself or anyone else if he wanted to. Shiryu's experiences real fear and desperation, probably for the first time in his entire life, leading to him ultimately crying out for a hero to save him. Saitama's effortless rescue not only shatters deluded notions he had of his own strength, but it also inspires a newfound admiration for those who decide to dedicate their strength to protecting others. That he abandons ideas like dominance or personal glory, decides that he wants to become a hero. He wants to be selfless and use his strength to protect others like the heroes did for him. Now, obviously, a lot of characters in the story are humbled by Saitama, leading to a change in worldview or perspective. And Suiryu is probably the best example of that we've seen so far in the anime. But something we haven't seen in the anime, and I'll touch on briefly, is Tatsumaki. Tatsumaki in the manga, straight after the Monster Association arc, is faced with a dilemma that brings up some childhood trauma of hers. And it also puts a magnifying glass on many of her actual character flaws. Not the ones we've seen in the anime, where she is much like Suiryu. She's arrogant and unbelievably self-reliant. But in that arc, she shows weakness and an explanation as to why she's ended up in the spot that she is. I'm not talking about how she grew more powerful. I'm talking about how her perception of people and herself was affected by one individual. And I actually talk about it in great depth in this video here. So I hope I have actually dispelled any notions that there isn't any deeper moments in One Punch Man, because there are. On paper, One Punch Man feels like the last place you would expect a heartfelt tribute on the courage of humanity. But in Muman Rider, we see that heroism. It isn't always about saving the day. Sometimes it's about standing your ground and knowing you'll lose because someone has to. In a world of invincible protagonists and of ever-escalating power levels and battles, characters like Muman Rider remind us that bravery isn't just about strength. It's a choice to act even when it seems pointless to. The choice to keep going even when everyone else has fallen. And maybe that's why his story resonates so much, because most of us aren't Saitama. We're not the strongest in the room, and because Saitama's issues centered around that fact, it's hard for us to resonate with him. But we can be Muman Rider. Anyone can be Muman Rider. We can keep showing up, we can keep trying, and in the end, that's what makes him the best hero in the entire story.